Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here to give you guys my Halloween movie review series. And I know the Halloween movie review series this year has been pretty much a flop, considering the fact that I really haven't been doing them as much this year. Pretty much what's happened is I've just been really busy with school. I had a huge exam. Um, I believe it was on October 8th. Well, it was in the beginning of October. I think it was on October. It was on October 9th because I remember I had a paper due October 10th. And I had to put all my effort into studying for that. So I had to kind of take a few days off. But then pretty much I never was able to get back to it. I did do a couple of them. I did obviously the Friday the 13th, part 6 and 7. But then um, my, pretty much my grandmother came home from North Carolina. So we had like a huge welcome back party for her. And then I just been busy transitioning. I mean, I've always transitioned, but then I had to do some schoolwork and stuff. So it's just been a really busy semester this year. It was pretty busy last semester, but I was able to make more time for it last semester than it was this semester. It just ends up kind of being the way that it works out, but whatever. Um, but yeah, I'm here to give you guys what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to just binge watch a lot of the Halloween movie review series I was going to watch and try to combine them all and try to get them all up before Halloween. So hopefully that can work. So I'm going to watch three. Um, well, by the time you see this, it's probably going to be like midnight. I'm going to watch three today, and then I might watch Monday. I'm gonna watch like a ton of them, and then Tuesday the same thing. So I am gonna try to get these up as fast as I possibly can. But let's talk about the one I'm gonna be reviewing in this video. And I think this is why, because the next three movies are like really bad. So I've been kind of um procrastinating because these next three movies are really bad. This one is called Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. We can't really see it because there's a glow in the webcam, but that's the poster for the DVD. So usually what I like to do is, since I have the DVD, I'll read the info of what the DVD is about, and then I'll kind of talk about the movie and what went into making it, and then the film itself, and then um, my thoughts on it and everything else, how successful it was. So let's read what this movie was about. New York has a new problem in Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, Deluxe Edition. After, after an electrifying return from the bottom of his Crystal Lake grave, indestructible psycho slasher Jason Voorhees ships out to visit the Big Apple and paints the town red. High school senior Rennie Wickham, I think that's how you say your last name, is in for the ride of her life and possibly her death when she and her classmates take a graduation cruise bound for New York City. Little do they know that crazed serial killer Jason is a stowaway who quickly transforms the team-filled Love Boat celebration into the ultimate voyage of the damned. Only a few survivors reach New York, where the bloody rampage spills into the gritty streets and subways of Manhattan in a deadly game of hide and seek, leading to a toxic confrontation with Jason for one last final time. So they essentially kind of give away the film, because I'm just going to tell you this right now. The title is very misleading. This um, movie is called Jason Takes Manhattan, and that is not the case at all, because pretty much what you could call this film is Jason's cruise to Manhattan, because he doesn't go to Manhattan until like the last 15 minutes of the movie. Pretty much he's on the first like 5 minutes or so at Crystal Lake, and then um it's the cruise and then like um a good half hour of it is the cruise to Manhattan, and then they pretty much don't go to Manhattan until like the last 15 minutes of the movie. It was a huge joke, and yeah, I hated it. Um, Very misleading title. Um, and obviously I gave away what I thought about this movie. I remember I didn't like this movie when I watched it at the time, and I pretty much have the same feelings about it watching it now. The last time I saw this movie was in the summer of 2012, and I'm watching it in October of 2016. So let's talk about what went into making this movie. So originally, um, they were gonna make a sequel based off um, Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, um, where um, Tina Shepard was going to come back and she was going to have another face off with Jason Voorhees after being released for the insane asylum, and everybody kind of um, wrote stories out about what could be possibly the direction they were going to go with that. But then Paramount Pictures opted to the project and um, signed a follow up to writer director Rob Heaton, who made his debut to the picture, and he wanted to do a new idea. And like I said in the last review, I do respect the fact, and I do appreciate the fact that um, the Friday the 13th series tried to do something new, because um, after a while, seeing Jason Voorhees just kill people at Crystal Lake, I guess, does get a little old. So you do have to, I guess, appreciate them trying something new. But pretty much, John Heaton wanted to get Jason Voorhees away from Camp Crystal Lake. He wanted to put him originally on a cruise, which explains the first half of the film. But then he wanted to get into a big city, and obviously the idea was New York. So Paramount Pictures, who distributes the Friday the 13th series, went with it. They liked the idea, so they went with the idea. Well, then, obviously they had some budget cuts and stuff because they couldn't film the whole film in New York because they couldn't afford it. So they did some of it. Most of it on the ship, and they did the last 15 minutes in New York, which kind of sucks. And then there's something else I was going to say. I want to make sure I just have all of my stuff. Originally, actually, I should mention that this movie wasn't called Friday the 13th. It was called Ashes to Ashes, and most of the cast thought that was the film that was being made because they wanted to keep it a secret that Jason Voorhees Jason Voorhees was in New York because they knew everyone would be big fans of him, and they actually have one of the director's cut things where they used to um, start like a certain scene, and it has Ashes to Ashes written on it. I think that's really cool, and um, VC what I have to get his name, but um, VC Tabri actually thought that he was filming Ashes to Ashes, but then he talked to Kelly who knew she was filming Friday the 13th, and they were both in the same film. So some of the cast knew that they were filming Friday the 13th, and some of the cast didn't know they were filming Friday the 13th. I thought that was pretty interesting. And that's about all I'm really going to say about what went into making the film, just because, and also too, John Heaton wanted this to be the last Friday the 13th, even though Part 4, the final chapter, was supposed to be the last Friday the 13th. So he was given creative control of how he could kill off Friday the 13th. And obviously there was a lot of scenes that were cut. I actually did watch, because I have the movie and it has it in the special features. I did watch the slash scenes and I did watch the outtakes, so maybe I'll address those in the film or as I'm reviewing the movie. But yeah, pretty much they want to do a lot of more brutal stuff, but because but it was rejected, so they had to reshoot a lot of scenes and stuff like that. I couldn't remember the name of the like company that said no, that would have given it an X rated because it had to be rated R at the time. So yeah, that's that. But that's pretty much my what went into making the film. Let's talk about the actual film itself. It was directed, like I said, by Rob Heaton. It was produced by Randy Shovel Dave. I don't know if that's how you say his name. It was also written by Rob Heaton. and it was based off the characters by Victor Miller. The music was done by Fred Moulton. He talked about how he kind of liked doing the music this time. The cinematography was done by Brian England, and it was edited by Steve Mikovich. I don't know if that's how you say his last name. It was distributed by Paramount Pictures, which obviously I said that before. And the movie came out on July 18th, 1989, which I don't think is right because I thought it said 1993 it came out, but I guess it's not the case. It came out in 1989 is when it was released. And the movie had it doesn't give approximately a 5.1/5.5 million dollar budget. It doesn't really give an exact number. And yeah, that's pretty much basically it. I thought this movie came out in 1993. I guess it came out in 1989. It came out a year after the last one. Because I watched like a commentary of it, and it said it was 20 years later. So I thought it was 2013. So I guess that's not the case, but whatever. But let's talk about the actual movie itself. The movie opens up setting the tone of Manhattan. It shows all the stuff, all like the people that we were gonna see later on in the film. It shows, you know, what do they call them? The robbers, pretty much. I forget the the junkies. They don't call them junkies in the film, but they show the junkies, robbing somebody of the money and throwing it into like a barrel of refuge, and it shows a rat crawling out of there. It shows a bunch of you know a bunch of street thugs listening to music, and it also showed people hanging out at a restaurant. And the theme song they used for this, I believe I have the theme song, was called The Darkest Side of the Night, which they used throughout the film. I think this was the first time Jason had like a actual song in one of his series. Now, normally I like when they do this type of stuff because it sets the tone for the film. It kind of tells you what the film's going to be about, but that's not what happened. They don't come back to this, like I said, until the last 15 fucking minutes of the movie. So it's kind of like, but when I watched this scene, I watched the movie again with the commentary over it. And, yeah, pretty much you don't even remember half of these people were shown originally. I didn't remember until I watched it a second time. It was just, yeah, whatever. Then it cuts to a boat where we see Susie Donaldson and Jim Miller, who are a couple who are about to graduate high school, getting ready to go on a big cruise. And, of course, Jim tells the story about Jason. I'm starting to notice a pattern here, though. Never tell the story of Jason because they talk about how it's all bullshit, and obviously we know it's not bullshit because we've watched, at this point, 7 of these movies prior to this. But he tells a story about everything that went down with Jason. It actually shows like a vision of Jason drowning. We see this, but they don't see it. And he drops the anchor so they can have sex, and it attaches to the cord where Jason was chained and stuff from the last film, and a big bolt of lightning hits the anchor, and it electrocutes Jason, and this revives Jason. Which doesn't make any sense because why would this happen now and not obviously other times when people have gone and dropped the anchor there? I'm assuming that people have done it before, but whatever. So Jason pops on the boat, and Jim walks away and says he has to go do something. and Susie starts to get all nervous because she's been told the story about Jason, and Jim pops up out of no. Well, actually, Jason pops up out of nowhere and stabs Susie, which we were supposed to have thought, but I accidentally gave it away. It wasn't actually Jason; it was Jim, which we obviously knew it was Jason. It was Jim because um, Jim was a little shorter and he wasn't as bulky as Jason is, but we find out it really wasn't a knife; it was just a fake knife that you stab and it just pushes in and then you take it out. So she calls him an asshole for pranking him and stuff like that. But then Jason actually pops up and puts the hockey mask on because he doesn't have his other hockey mask because it was destroyed in the last film. He pops up with a spear gun, and Jim and Susie are having sex, and then they see Jason. They freak out, and he tries to shoot. Um, you know, Susie with the spear gun, but he misses, and she runs away. But then Jim gets stabbed right in the gut by Jason with the spear gun, and he pulls it out. And I actually thought at the time that this wasn't his intestines, and I was originally going to come on here and say that it looked really stupid and looked really weak. But I watched the commentary version, and Kane Hodder, who plays Jason, explains that it really isn't intestine; it's part of the spear gun. And then when you actually watch and he mentions it, you actually do notice that. And obviously, Jim dies. I did like the scene where um, he has the blood all over his hands and stuff like that. Now, you would have thought that if you were a normal human being, you would have thought that Susie would have jumped off the boat, swam to shore, but nope, that's not what happens. She hides in the dock. What do they call it? Um, she Well, it says a harpoon gun here, but I'm just gonna call it a spear gun. Well, she hides from him. She hides like in the docking area of the boat, and Jason opens it up, and stabs her with the spear gun. And then that pretty much is the opening of the movie, and it cuts to the part about the cruise, and everyone's taking like a senior cruise. It's the name of the ship is called the SS Lazarus, and um, Winnie Wickham and her teacher Colleen Van Ducent. Um, Colleen has asked Winnie to go on this ship because they wanted to take chances. And Colleen says that Winnie's been one of her best students, so she gives her a gift. It ends up being a pen, an old school style pen that you would use to write essays because Winnie's like a top student. And we meet Charles McCulloch. I don't know if that's how you say his last name, but I'm probably never going to say it until I go through the cast. And Charles, um, is upset that they're running late because Jim and Susie were supposed to go on this cruise, but they're not there because we know that they're dead, but they don't know that. And he just assumes that they went off and did something on their own, and um, then Colleen reveals that Randy's gonna go on the ship. She brings her dog Toby, um, and then Charles isn't happy that Randy's going on this cruise because he talks about how he's a legal guardian, and we find out that he's her uncle, and says that he was that he knows what's best for her, and she's living a stable life living with me. But Colleen thinks that Randy needs to take chances and do this type of stuff, and that she's not living a stable life. And Charles isn't happy about this, saying that I decide what's best for her, and that's the end of it. And Colleen says, no, that's just the beginning. And you can see in this film that this was kind of like the era where the parents kind of thought they knew what was best for their kids, because we saw a lot of that in this film. But then what happens is Susie and Jim's boat, I don't know whose boat it exactly was, ends up coming back to shore, and nobody's on the ship, and the deckhand sees this and realizes that something bad's gonna happen. So then in the next scene is Sean and some other guy we never really hear from, and Admiral Robinson and um, his other deckhand hand, Mr. Carlson, I think his name was. Um, and we could see that Admiral Robinson's kind of this way too, where he wants his son to be an admiral as well. So he got him like this GPS system, and this old school type of um, shipwork type of stuff, and he wants him to like be able to know how to run the ship, but Sean just doesn't have any of it. So Admiral Robinson does it himself and kind of feels guilty about it, and Sean walks down the ship and runs into the deckhand, and the deckhand warns him that everybody's going to die in the ship. He's, again, that crazy old guy that warns them about a murder coming, and nobody believes him because he's crazy, but he actually ends up being right at the end. And who comes on the ship? None other than Jason. He ends up climbing one of the ropes of the ship that is holding it down like an anchor and goes on the ship. So obviously, and we obviously, everybody is in a shitstorm. So then what happens is um, Sean. We find out that Sean and Rennie are an item, and Sean gets her a Statue of Liberty necklace because they're going to New York. Obviously, I didn't say that, but I figured you guys would have known that because that's the title of the video. I mean, that's the title of the movie, and that's how they have to get there. So he puts the necklace around her. I do gotta say too, Rennie really didn't look that attractive in the beginning of the film, and her outfit really wasn't my style. But she did start to get more attractive as the movie went along. I don't know why that happened; it just did. And Charles then wants to talk to Rennie. And what I didn't like about this scene was they show this scene and then they cut away from it. It's like that was kind of important to see. But Charles tries to convince Rennie not to stay on the ship because he knows how scared she is of the water. But Rennie said that she wants to do this because she wants to face her fears. But Charles says that not facing your fears isn't always a good thing. But she said that she chose to do this and I'm doing it. So she decided to do it. And then we meet Wayne and JJ. Wayne is a Wayne Weber who looks like Matt Damon because I watched the commentator and I went back and looked up what Matt Damon looked like back then, and he does look like Matt Damon. Um, and he wants to go to film school, so he videotapes everything, and I mean actually records everything. These are like the old school cameras from back then because it turns into a video. They were actually real videotape recorders because you have to record everything on a VHS tape. And JJ's a wannabe rock star, and he's filming her. We find out that Wayne has a thing for this person named Tamara Mason, who we don't meet until for a little bit, and he wants to go film her. And JJ goes like to the bottom deck of the ship and performs a song. And who pops up behind her? None other than Jason. And she sees her and she starts screaming. The deckhand hears her, and she tries to run away from Jason, but Jason kills her with her electric guitar, hits her right off the head. We don't actually see it happen. We just see Jason swing at like the camera, and then it goes splat with blood. And I think Kane Hodder, who played this scene, talked about how when he walked down the stairs, he didn't want to look at the steps that were like 4 feet tall, and he's like he has like a 36-inch boot, and I don't remember if he said 36 inch, but it was he has big feet, but he didn't want to look because he didn't think Jason would do that. So I thought that was interesting right there. And obviously an outtake was they talk about how Colleen was going to resign as a teacher because the school was going to close down, which I don't remember them mentioning that in the beginning, really in the film without the outtakes. But then she said that she's gonna write a story, and she even kind of like references that she's gonna write about a cruise ship with love and death, kind of referencing what this movie's kind of about. So I thought that was a nice touch right there. And then we do meet Tamara and her friend Eva Wantabe. I don't think that's how you say that name, but that's how I'm saying it. Um, and um, they're watching Julius and box with some other guy. We never really meet who the other guy is. And they get into a boxing match, and Julius is like undefeated at boxing. He knocks the guy out, and later on, the guy that he's boxing with is in the heated room, and it gets powered through walks. And Jason pops in there, and he grabs one of the walks, and he um, puts it onto he forces it onto the guy's stomach, and he ends up dying because of the heat. I thought that was a nice kill, actually. Really good kill. He ended up bleeding out of his um, stomach. I thought it was an awesome kill. And obviously, this was a stunt double, and originally it looked more gruesome, but because the media sucks sometimes about not wanting to show that type of stuff, they don't show it. So then what happens is Tamara and Eva. Tamara's pretty much kind of like one of those snobby girls like in the last film and that we see in the movies where she's very slutty and will do whatever it takes to kind of get away. And they end up doing drugs. You actually get, and in the outtakes, you actually see Eva snort the cocaine, which I thought was interesting. They didn't show that in the film. And somebody walks up thinking we're supposed to think that it's Jason, but it's actually Charles. He's looking for, um, he's looking for Rennie, and he reveals that Tamara never turned in her one of her projects, which doesn't make any sense because this is the end of the school year, and um, I guess sometimes if you're just about to graduate, but I would you would have to turn it in. But why is she on this graduation cruise if she hasn't turned in a project? It really doesn't make any sense. But he wants to see her final project, so she agrees, and he says that she won't step foot on this off the ship. Um, so she ended up having a run in with Rennie, and because Rennie couldn't find her dog, Rennie had like a hallucination of Jason drowning within in the porthole, saying "Help me." It looked really bad. These hallucinations of Jason were awful. They looked so bad. So she finds out that well, she knows that Rennie's afraid of the water, so obviously she's going to use that. So Rennie's talking to Colleen about the trip, and Tamara pops up and bumps into her, and she falls off the ship, and Colleen tries to throw down the rubber a life preserver or rubber raft. I forget what it's called, but and Rennie doesn't grab it, so Sean has to jump in and swim her to the rubber raft, and um, we find out that Rennie can't swim. In the outtake, she admits something I'm going to talk about later on in the movie about why the reason she doesn't like to swim, and I did like Colleen's reaction when she's like, "No kidding," and then Charles comes over and is very concerned about her, and Charles tells Sean and um, Colleen to stay away from her, and then we see the deckhand is talking about how everybody's all doomed on the ship, and when he just wants to be left alone. And Tamara and Eva think that was the funniest thing. Well, Tamara thinks that her pushing Rennie was the funniest thing ever, but Eva doesn't feel good about it, so she just leaves. And Tamara's like, "What kind of friend are you?" Or some friend you are. And then um, Charles comes in and wants to see a final project, but pretty much not Rennie. I'm sorry, that would have been really bad. Tamara is in a robe and has champagne, like she wants to have sex with Charles, pretty much to bribe him, so that way she can just get a good grade. But Charles isn't happy about this and says that I'm gonna make sure that you don't get off the ship. And then Tamara um, takes her robe off, and we find out that she's in pretty much a bikini, and says that she wants to show Charles her final project. And obviously, Charles is very um, feeling very horny about this, and he doesn't really stop her, but he's like, that's enough. But he's kind of mesmerized by this, and she makes out with him, and Wayne walks up with the camera, and we find out this was going to be used to blackmail Charles, so that way she could leave the ship and she could graduate. But Charles says that because he ends up throwing her the tape. Nowadays, this wouldn't happen. That someone could have just easily filmed this off their cell phone and threatened to upload it on like YouTube or something. So um, yeah, he lucked out on that one. But um, Charles says that he's going to make sure that Timla sits in a high school next year and that Wayne never goes to film school. And Wayne tries to hit on Timla, but Timla just isn't having any of that. And later on, Timla's taking a shower. Jason pops in, and she sees Jason, and she gets all scared. And Jason punches a hole through the door and tries to grab at her, but she ends up escaping, and Jason pulls her robe off and throws her. Actually, she gets thrown into the mirror, which um, shatters. Kane Hodder said that when this was filmed, he was supposed to completely break the mirror, but that didn't happen. He had to come in and break the mirror himself, so he kind of had to improvise. And then he stabs her with remains of the mirror. And obviously, um, we don't get to see her actually die, and Kane Hodder kind of wishes that could have happened, which we all do. And an outtake, you do get to see like multiple remains of the Mila stabbed into her, because Eva later on goes down there and tries to get Tamara, and we don't actually we in the outtake it shows like multiple of the remains of the Mila just stabbed right into her body, but because sometimes the media sucks, if we didn't let that get released, it didn't get released. So then I'll just say this now. She later on sees Jason, and they have a big disco room, and she runs into the disco room. And what was really weird about this was she couldn't get out, so Jason was just standing right there, and she was trying to find a way out, and then Jason like disappeared, and then all of a sudden Jason just randomly popped up again, and the kill should have been her going through the disco ball, but instead Jason just chokes her to death and throws her to the ground. It was very underwhelming. I thought that was kind of an underwhelming kill. Jason should have just choked her and thrown her through the disco ball. That would have been awesome, but that's not what happened. But then, before this had happened, Jason kills Admiral Robinson and Mr. Carlson, if that's his name. I don't think that is his name, but um, pretty much kills the two people that are controlling the ship. He stabs one of them with um, some sort of spear gun and right through the back. And I did like the cinematography that it was green on Jason's side, so I liked that. And then Admiral Robinson comes up and sees this, and then Jason takes a cleaver and slices his throat. And I liked the way that scene looked too. And Rennie and Sean see this because they want to tell him to get up, that they want off the ship. It shows an outtake of that, but we never actually see it. I forgot to mention too, Rennie had another hallucination. Jason, baby, it was really bad. She tries to clean herself up after she had drowned, and she's washing her hands, and blood starts coming out of the faucet, and young Jason pops out of the mirror and like pulls at her. It was really stupid. She had another one when she was drowning and Jason tried to pull her into the water, which was a hallucination. It was just like, ugh. It was just really bad. These hallucinations with Jason just look ridiculous. Um, so they pretty much realize that they have nobody to control the ship. So Rennie has, which was another outtake, but I'll just say it. Rennie has Sean try to radio in for help, and she's gonna go lift the anchor. And Sean reports everyone to kind of come up to um, the pilot side of the ship, and they when everybody's there, the deckhand comes up and says that this is Jason Voorhees, and he's here to kill you all. And um, um, Charles loses it, and he grabs an axe, grabs the cleaver, and threatens to kill the deckhand, but the deckhand runs away. And Charles thinks that it's the deckhand that's doing all this and making it look like that it's Jason. So, all the classmates, including mainly Julius, he kind of leads the pack. And I love Julius's wardrobe that he was wearing for this. He had like a American red, white, and blue jumpsuit. I thought that looked cool. Wants to just go kill Jason before he kills them. And Charles tries to say, "I'm in charge here. Um, I'm in charge here, and I call the shots." But then Julius says, "School's over, and I call the shots around here." So they all go to try to find Jason, and what ends up happening is they all grab weapons, and um, you know, Wayne has a shotgun, but he won't even fucking put his camera down, so that way he can fucking um kill Jason. He just has his fucking camera up. It was really stupid. But um, what happens is one of the steams pop up through the pipes and blows right into his face, and he ends up losing his glasses, so he can't see a thing in front of him. So he kills someone thinking that it's Jason, but it's not Jason. He finds out because he zooms in on his face, and then Jason pops up and knocks the camera out of his hands, and Wayne runs away, and then he trips over JJ, and Jason throws him into the electric box, and he ends up electrocuted and dying. And then the electric box catches on fire, and then Jason kills everybody else. He kills this guy who we had seen, who was with Sean in the beginning of the film, and the guy tries to hit Jason with a fireman's axe, but Jason blocks it and throws it, and it lands right in front of Julius, so he realizes that the killer's not far away from him. And the guy tries to climb up on top of the boat, and Jason throws him off and throws him through the antenna and dies. And then Julius sees this, and Jason ambushes him and throws him off the boat. And I thought that looked like a cool scene. Colleen takes these three students and tells them to stay in the food area, into the food area where they get their food, until she comes back, which they end up doing. And Jason watches through this, and then Rennie has another hallucination of Jason, where he's begging for help again, like water's falling on him. And as this happens, Jason's face continues to get more deformed, I guess, because it just is the way that works. I don't know, but that's just what happened. And the real Jason, um, puts his head through the porthole, and tries to grab Rennie, and Rennie uses the pen to stab Jason through the eye, and Jason pulls it out, and like blood, but it's like black, comes through his eye. I should mention too, Jason's all like had like a bunch of moist and stuff all over him, and he's very wet and sludgy from, I don't think sludgy is a word, but he pretty much is all deformed and stuff from being back from, reviving from the last film. But then Sean and Rennie go into the realize that there's a fire, and Jason punches the fire alarm and it goes off, and Charles grabs a flare gun, is gonna go take care of the deckhand, and the deckhand attacks him from behind, and Charles goes to chase after him, and then Sean and Rennie realize they need to get off the ship because the ship's kind of like starting to over flood, so they run away, and Rennie nearly drowns in the flood, and then they run away. There was a bad scene that was an outtake where the deckhand was really drunk and falling down the stairs, and he has like a hallucination of young Jason falling down the stairs. Thank God they got that out of there, because that would have made this movie a lot worse than what it was. And then I'm trying to remember what else. And then the next scene is Sean and Rennie coming back up, and Charles tells Sean to stay away from Rennie, but Sean says, "No, you're gonna listen to me because I'm the one that can save your life and get you off the ship." He just owns Charles, and then Colleen pops back up and says, and Charles says that we're getting off the ship, and Colleen says, well, no, it was Sean that said it. And Colleen says, well, I left 3 students down there. I have to go get them. We have to go get them. And then Sean says, no, that place is completely underwater. So pretty much, Colleen just sent 3 students to their death. She pretty much just inadvertently killed 3 students. What an idiot. But then they see the deckhand who has the cleaver or kitchen knife. I forget exactly what it was. And he acts like he's going to kill him. But then we find out that he falls over and we find out that Jason killed him with a fireman's axe. And they all get scared, so they go into the rough boat, which is the lifeboat. That's what I'm thinking about, the lifeboat. All of them. They did an outtake where Rennie was too scared, which I'm glad they got that out because that wouldn't have made any sense. Because if you have if you have Jason Voorhees or someone after you killing you, that wouldn't happen. And then Jason is just seen on the ladder and he just fucking stands there and doesn't try to go down there and kill any of these people. So that was very unlike Jason, but whatever. It was more like to kind of scare you. And then Julius pops up out of nowhere and I guess survives and being thrown off the ship, which was kind of cool because I liked Julius, but it really didn't make any sense because he had been under there for probably like 40 minutes. I think he would drown after 40 minutes. So they dragged this out for a while where everybody's where Sean and Julius row in the lifeboat and trying to get to shore, and then they see the Statue of Liberty, knowing that they're in New York. So they land the lifeboat, and I would mention too that Rennie's hair, it kept getting like puffier and puffier and puffier as this movie went on, and I did notice it. But when I watched the commentary version, even Jensen Dagjet, who plays Rennie, mentions it. And they want to get to a payphone or something to find the police, so that way they can get to a better place because they're pretty much in like the bad part of New York. And Jason pops up out of the water. They don't hear his splash go off, but whatever. And Jason, I guess, swam all the way to New York. Remember this because this is going to get important when I talk about Freddy versus Jason. And I did like this scene where Jason pops up and he's looking at the camera and he sees like a billboard of somebody wearing his mask saying, this is the competition. And it was kind of really cool because Jason's like, I'm famous in New York. It was really cool. It was really funny. And Rennie and everybody is in the stingiest part of New York. And we meet these 2 junkies who rob them. And honestly, this was actually more scarier than anything Jason did in this movie. They rob them of their money, and Toby, who's the dog, tries to stand up for him, but one of the junkies shoot at him, and this scares Toby away. And they think Rennie is hot, so they want to have sex with her and pretty much rape her. So they kidnap her and they threaten everybody else and they also take off the Statue of Liberty necklace and rip it off her. And Sean tries to step in and do something, but they hold her at gunpoint and threaten to kill her. But they kidnap Rennie and threaten that if anybody follows them, they'll get killed. Which Charles completely misheard because Julius tries to go and help her, and Charles says, no, did you hear what they said? He'll kill her. And I'm like, Charles, that's not what they said. They said they'd kill you. Maybe they'll kill both of them, but they're going to kill you if you go help them. And I got to say, Rennie looked exhausted as hell in this scene. And there was a lot of scenes like that where Rennie looked tired as hell, like she was about to fall asleep. And you could see, I was even thinking here, it makes sense because they were in the lifeboat, but it's not like she had to fucking do shit in that lifeboat. It was fucking Julius and Sean that were doing all the work in that fucking lifeboat, so why the fuck was she so tired? But they all split up to try to find Rennie or the police or something, which was Charles suggested, and I'm like, yep, this is the thing you're not supposed to be doing in horror movies because you never split up in a horror movie. That's like one of the biggest rules. So, um, the junkies or druggies, it's pretty much about the same thing, kidnap Winnie. Winnie's screaming for help, and they put her on a couch that probably hasn't been washed in 5 years. And one of them injects Winnie with heroin or some sort of drug that you have to take through a needle. I'm just gonna say it was heroin because I would imagine that's what it is because she got all relaxed afterwards and stuff. And when he spits in his face and he slaps her, and it was very uncomfortable, but that was kind of the point. And obviously Jason pops up and he takes the needle and um, stabs one of the junkies right through the gut with it. It looked pretty gruesome, and he ends up dying. And then the other junkie pops up and is like, "Who the fuck are you?" Actually, that's exactly what he said. And he shoots at Jason, and because Jason's impervious to pain, he just walks right through it. Even though it did look like it was kind of hurting him a little bit, but still. And then when he runs out of bullets, Jason's able to grab his face and he throws him right through one of the pipes, and he ends up dying. And Rennie's able to escape, but obviously because she's had heroin injected with her and is pretty much high, she's all loopy. Um, but then the next scene is awesome. So Julius tries to use the payphone to try to call 911, and Jason punches through the glass and tries to grab at Julius, but Julius runs and he climbs on top of this building, and Jason climbs on top of it with him. And Julius uses his boxing skills and he tries to punch Jason, and he punches him about 20 times, maybe 15, and he starts to get weaker and weaker. His knuckles stop bleeding, which VC said that was not fake. His knuckles really did get busted open, and I did hear the use like a professional boxer. And Kane Hodder said that the guy that Julius actually he punched him more because since the other guy was a professional boxer, he knew how to do real and fake punches. But Julius finally wears himself out, which is a logic flaw because if you're a boxer and you have been undefeated and stuff, you should know not to um, overuse your energy on your opponents. You should be able to exert energy. So it really didn't make any sense that this happened. But he gets all exhausted and he tells Jason, "Give me your best shot, fucker." And Jason punches Julius in the head, and his head pops completely off. It falls off the building and goes right into the dumpster, and the dumpster closes. I like this scene a lot. It's probably one of Jason's best kills, and I even liked how when the head was falling off the building, you even got to see the from the head falling from the Julius's decapitated head point of view. I thought that was awesome. Um, I heard, and they wanted to do this in Madison Square Garden, which would have been a lot better, but I still thought this worked here. It was one of the few scenes I really enjoyed in this movie. So then, Vinny, Sean, um, Colleen, and Charles all meet up again. Charles ends up finding the police, and they um, offer to take him back to the police station, and they all get in the car, and um, you know, when the police opens the door and like the light comes on, we see Julius's decapitated head right under the police dashboard, and this freaks everybody out. Um, the police officer tries to call for backup, but Jason ambushes him, and he ends up ripping his USB radio, and Jason murders him. And then Rennie, who's just been injected with drugs, drives the car right into Jason, and she has another hallucination of young Jason and runs over him too. I don't know if this hallucination was because she had just been injected with heroin or if this was just a normal hallucination. But she seemed pretty normal afterwards, so I'm not really sure. But she drives the car into a bunch of barrels and into like a wall, and the car catches on fire. And Rennie, Charles, and Sean escape, but Colleen's unable to, and the car just explodes, and Colleen dies pretty much. Which I thought Colleen kind of deserved because she fucking left 3 kids in the bottom of a boat to die, so she deserved this death. And then Wendy finds out what actually happened to her. She finds out why she's afraid of water. She has another hallucination and has a flashback, which this one I still don't know it was because she had been injected with heroin, but whatever. And it's her younger visiting Charles at Camp Crystal Lake because I guess he had a place down there. And Charles isn't happy because she's been visiting him for the past 3 summers and still hasn't learned how to swim. So Jenny promises to learn how to swim, but Charles tells the story of how when Jason drowned, he wasn't a very good swimmer, and there's rumors that he's still here and is willing to pull anybody down that doesn't know how to swim. And obviously he's just telling the story, so he throws Rennie into the water and wants her to learn how to swim. Now keep in mind that he threw Rennie into the water where she couldn't touch. That's not how you teach somebody how to swim. You don't throw somebody in the water like that when they can't fucking touch. You should, you know, have them be able to touch or something. But that, whatever. So, she's unable to swim. Jason pulls her into the water, but we don't see anything else that happens. So we find out that Rennie had an experience with Jason, and that's why she's afraid of water. And she confronts her uncle about this, and she's not happy with him. And Sean tells her to stay away from her, and knocks him over and shoves him to the ground. Now they did do an outtake where Rennie actually does know about this story, and she told Colleen about it, but they took it out because obviously then this scene wouldn't have made any sense. But I like this scene overall. Actually, I can't really say I liked it. And then Charles sees that Jason's alive, and he's like, "No, it can't be." Like he's in disbelief that Jason's alive, which makes no fucking sense because the whole movie was Jason killing him. So he runs away. He runs into an old abandoned building, and Jason tosses him out. But Kane's Hodder has said um that Charles just jumped out himself, and Jason grabs him and he um drives him headfirst into a barrel of refuge and kills Charles. And there's a dead rat in there too. Um, which was a nice scene, and Charles had this coming too. So yeah, it really didn't make any sense though that all of a sudden Jason was just in the abandoned building. It was like in the last film, where all of a sudden he was on land and then he was in the water within the span of 2 seconds. This one was even worse because he actually went up a building. So how Jason must really be supernatural then if he could fucking teleport in the span of 2 seconds. Um, and then Sean confronts Rennie, and Rennie's upset because she feels like that every time she starts to love somebody, they die because it happened to her parents. We find out her parents was in a car accident, and it just now happened to her uncle. So, yeah. And they have a nice moment where they kiss and said that you're not going to lose me. And then Jason knocks over a ton of barrels, and this scares both of them. Even though, if you watch the scene, Rennie actually looks like she's about to laugh, so that was really weird. And they do talk about this on the commentary version. So everybody, Sean and Rennie run away from Jason, and they run into the subway, and Jason just walks through the door because Jason thinks doors are for chumps. And what wouldn't make any sense about any of these scenes is now they start to get to like the normal New York civilians, and they see Jason and they see them running away from this killer, and they're just oblivious to it. Like, I know New York sometimes isn't a very nice place, but um, you would think that if someone is about to murder somebody and you see them running away, you would react to it, but I guess not. And then they run into the subway and they see Jason like within one of the doors about to come into one of the coats. Um, so they run away from Jason. They run from coat to coat, and they pull. Sean pulls the and Jason knocked over this woman trying to get them, and then Sean pulls the emergency brake, which sends Jason flying. And this is when everybody gets pissed. They get fucking pissed when Sean pulls the emergency brake, and you know, um, and they all get pissed that like this isn't their stop and stuff, which didn't make any sense, but whatever. And then Jason gets off not the plane, the train. And what I liked about this is there's a poster and it has like a ton of graffiti on it. And one of the things that it says, and Kane Hodder pointed this out on commentary, because I watched the commentary version of this movie, was Jason Lives. I thought that was very interesting. It was kind of like a callback to the part 6. And then Jason gets off the plane. Sean tackles him into the train track, and Jason gets electrocuted. And they walk up, and we're supposed to all think that Jason's dead. And they're actually in Times Square now. They're around all the big restaurants, like the big fast food restaurants, anyways, Burger King, McDonald's. And Jason pops up out of the sewer, and Rennie and Sean get scared again. They run into a restaurant, and they ask for a payphone because someone's about to kill him, and the waitress says, "Welcome to New York," and she says it's in the back, and then Jason walks through the thing, and then the cook comes over and says, "You son of a bitch," and then Jason throws him into a mirror, and the waitress hides from him, and then everybody is Sean and Rennie are trying to escape from Jason, but then Jason pops up right into the alley, and Rennie and Sean go into the sewers, and Jason follows them in there, um, and they run away from Jason, and then one of the um, sewer engineer pops up out of nowhere, and he says they want to know a way out, and they said, "Well, I know a way out, but we got to be quick because the toxic wasteland river pops up at midnight. Why it pops up at midnight, they didn't explain. I don't think this happens. They just needed this for the plot of the film. But they walking. So the sewage engineers walking them to the exit, and then Jason pops up out of nowhere and murders him with his wrench. And he tackled Sean into the wall, and he got knocked out. So he's about to kill Sean with the wrench, but then when he shines a flashlight into his face and says, um, "You didn't get me in the lake, and you're not gonna get me now." And um, Jensen Kane and Scott Reeves, who plays Sean, when they were on commentary, they would talk about how great of this fucking quote this is. They should be put on a T-shirt. And I actually didn't like this quote. I thought it was a pretty damn bad quote. And I thought it was just a bad line. But Jason follows her, and eventually Rennie uses the flashlight to. There was like this bucket of acid, and she throws it at Jason, which I think she could have just easily opened the barrel, but whatever. And Jason shows effects to it. He takes his mask off, and this scares Rennie. And Rennie and Sean run away, and they run up and try to climb up the sewer, but Jason grabs at Rennie's foot, and this ended. So then Rennie, no, then Jason, we hear the sewage go down, and Jason talks, and a pile of, I can't believe I'm about to say this, a pile of water pops out of his mouth, and it says, "Mommy, don't let me drown," and it says it as if he was 8 years old, in an 8-year old voice, and the sewage. Jason drowns Jason, and when we see Jason again, you would have thought, well, what's Jason gonna look like? Is he gonna be all rotted? Is he gonna be decomposed? He's been turned back into the 8-year-old boy, or 7-year-old. I don't remember exactly how old he was, but I'm gonna say 8 because he looked like he was about 8. Um, actually maybe 10 because the kid was 10 years old. But he was turned back into the 10-year-old boy that he was when he drowned, and we just see Jason looking like that. And then when it was just what a bunch of dog shit that was. And Kane Hodder, no, he says he doesn't hate this ending. He just thought they should have taken this ending into a different direction. And I agree with them, but I actually hate the ending. It's really stupid, makes no sense, and it's just awful. And then Jason's mask is just floated in the toxic waste. A lot of people talk about how bad toxic waste is, but well, it turned Jason Voorhees into an 8-year-old boy. So it saved Rennie and Sean's life. So maybe toxic waste isn't all that bad. So then what happens is Sean and Rennie come out of the sewer. Rennie kisses him on the cheek, not on the lips. They just had this big kissy moment before then, but then when they just went through this traumatic experience, he just gets a kiss on the cheek. And then somebody walks over. We're supposed to think it's Jason, and it's Toby, and then the movie ends. I forgot to mention the funny scene though when Jason knocks over the street thugs radio, and the street thugs want to fight Jason because he knocked over the radio on purpose, and Jason takes his mask off, and Kane Hodder said he smiled at them to see if they would stay legit, and then the guys are like, okay, it's cool because they know Jason because Jason's face is so deformed. It's cool, and then Jason takes his mask on and just continues doing what he's doing. Forgot to mention that scene. But yeah, that's the movie. That's Jason Takes Manhattan. And you can just see with the tone of my voice how much I loved this film. No, I hated this film. This film sucks. Well, there's a lot of reasons why this sucks. The main character is gotta be one of the least developed characters ever. She's in the movie like maybe not at all until they get to New York, and yeah, I know that's kind of like the typical Friday the 13th film, but whatever. But she's very undeveloped, and she just isn't a very good main character. Um, Obviously, the adults were very unlikable in this film. The fact that like I said, you could just pretty much just call this Jason's cruise to Manhattan because he's never really in Manhattan. He's only in Manhattan to the last 15 minutes. Like, think about it. They could have done a lot of cool shit with this. They could have done Jason going to the Statue of Liberty, which would have made sense because they kept fucking showing the thing like throughout the film, and they kept talking about it. Imagine how cool that would have been if Rennie and I almost said his actor name. Rennie and Sean went to the Statue of Liberty, and Jason did a kill there, or to Madison Square Garden, and went to like a science museum. They only went to like the bad parts of New York, and they only were in Times Square for like 5 minutes. They were only in New York for 15 fucking minutes. This was just, ugh. But you know, the hallucinations of Jason as younger and the ending were just bad. This film's bad. Don't watch it. Like I said, I talk about how there's Halloween movies you could skip. This is a big skip. Don't ever watch this film. It's shit. Bad, bad, bad. Don't ever watch it. It's really bad. I mean, you could say, well, you could watch it for the kills, but you could just fucking look up these kills online. Let's go look up. You could probably easily do that. You could probably look up best Friday the 13th kills, and the kills that are on this film will be on there. So you don't even need to watch it for that. But yeah, that's my review. If I had to rate this movie, I'm giving it a D minus because it did have some nice kills, and I did like some of the funny stuff on it. But this film is just not a good film. Like I said, I talk about how Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning was bad, but it's not as bad as this. This movie is much worse. I mean, I let it grade. It's I only gave it like I did give it a D minus, but it's still not good. My friend too. If you go to my CM Brothers channel, I did like a video on there where we talked about this film. And he showed me a lot of different posters of the Muppets Take Manhattan, Jason, and just a bunch of different parodies people made for this film. I thought it was funny. But I did forget to mention where this film was filmed. So obviously it was filmed in New York. Some of it was filmed in British Columbia, Canada, Vancouver. So there's that. And And obviously, Kane Hodder, who played Jason, talked about how fans would approach him when he was in Times Square, so I thought that was nice. Um, but let's talk about how this film did in theaters. This film didn't do very well in theaters. The film, let me just take a look. Let me look at the box office. So the film was entered at number 5 for the weekend, and it only made $6.2 million in box office in the opening weekend. Now, obviously, that's good, because it beat the budget, but that's pretty damn bad for Halloween standards because that's the lowest Halloween standards that it's ever had. Now, it did have competition. Um, this was the same weekend where A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, was released, so it did have some big competition, but still, you would have, with the amount of promotion that went into this film, where Jason was in New York, you would have thought this film would have at least done better than that. But, um, yeah, um, the film, it was like one of the biggest disappointments at the summer box office. Um, the film only grossed $14.3 million at the USA box office. It was in the number 17 of the list of that year's top 100 earners. But this is probably the lowest um, grossed. Actually, it is. It's the lowest gross Friday the 13th um, film ever. It's really low, and obviously um, the critics don't like this movie. They do kind of like it a little bit for the comedy aspects of it. The fans don't really like this movie either. On IMDb, it got a 4.6 out of 10, which is an F. Um, but some people watch this movie for a guilty pleasure. Some people love this film, which I would like to meet those people. And some people just really hate this film and don't ever want to watch it. So I'm in that category. So that's that. Don't watch this film. It's that bad. Don't ever watch this film. But let's talk about the cast. The cast was okay. I actually thought we had a decent cast. But like I've talked about this before, where the acting really doesn't matter in these types of films because it's just basically about killing. So, but let's go over the cast. Jensen, well, I already mentioned most of it, but Jensen Dadgett played Rennie Wickham. Um, Amber Pollock played young Jenny. Sorry, not I keep meaning to say Jenny, but young Rennie Wickham. Scott Leeds played Sean Robertson. Barbara Bingham played Colleen Van Decent. I don't know how to say her last name. Deusent. Mark Richmond played Charles McDorlock. Vic VC Dupuis played Julius Gaw. Kelly Hugh played Eva Wantabe. Charlene Martin played Tamara Mason, which she was a sweetheart in this film. I thought so, and not in the film. The actress was a sweetheart. She even talked about how she didn't want to do a naked scene, and um, Rob Rob Hedden did one himself, which is an outtake, which was funny. Um, yeah, so then Gordon Coey played Miles Wolf, who I don't remember who that is. Kane Hodder played Jason Voorhees, obviously. I gotta say, too, they originally weren't gonna cast him as Jason Voorhees because they didn't think he was interested, but he had to call himself and want to be cast in it. So I thought that was interesting. And Timothy Bo Mokovic, who was the son of the editor, played young Jason. Saffron Henderson played JJ. Martin Cummins played Wayne Weber. Alex Diakon played Deckhand. Warren Munson played Admiral Robinson. Todd Caldecott played Jim Miller. And Tiffany Paulson played Susie Donaldson. And Ace played Toby. And Jensen talked about this, how working with the dog was impossible because the dog was very well trained, but kind of but didn't really, do what the directors would tell them to do. Kind of did things on his own terms, which I thought was funny. And yeah, that's pretty much the entire cast. Um, and obviously too, there was a at the end it was supposed to be that young Jason was gonna pop out of like the mouth of big Jason, but that didn't happen. So, but like I said, this is not the final Friday the 13th though. It gets worse. Next one I'm gonna be reviewing is Jason Goes to Hell. Actually, I don't remember this one is worse though. After I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember not liking it. So that's pretty much my review. Leave your thoughts in the comments of what you guys thought of this video, and please make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video so people watch it. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel for more content and click on the bell so that way every time I upload a video, you guys get the notifications for it. Make sure you guys do the same thing for my CM Brothers YouTube channel. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.